What up, you fluffy bastards? My name is Liquid Blitz, and today we are looking at some huge changes coming soon to the damage and range of almost all weapons in Battlefield 1. A couple of days ago, the community test environment received a huge, game-changing update, increasing the damage and accuracy of most weapons, but like not just a little bit, a lot. First of all, I'm going to summarize all the information very quickly for people who don't care about specifics, who just want the information like that and who want to leave. But then I will go into hardcore detail for every single weapon for them hardcore people who want that hardcore specificity. Now keep in mind, this is being tested on the CTE right now, and there are already people crying about a couple of weapons being, like, seriously overpowered. Parabellum. Point is, it's being tested, so it's very likely that some of the stats I'm going to cover in this video will be changed at some point, so take every stat with a pinch of salt. Okay, so summary, let's get on with it. First of all, most automatic weapons like SMGs and LMGs are typically going to require one less bullet, or one fewer bullets, to kill. Grammar Nazi. Now, one bullet may not sound like a lot, but for fast-firing automatic weapons like SMGs and so on, that is a big deal, trust me. I mean, faster killing for the win. Next, self-loading rifles, aka single-shot rifles, aka medic weapons. They've all had their accuracy, effective fire rate, and range drastically improved. I'm talking drastic. Across the board, all SLRs have less spread and less spread increase per shot, making them more accurate when firing consecutively, and that's what they mean by effective fire rate. The actual fire rate hasn't changed, but because there's less spread increase per shot, it means you can fire more accurately, faster. Does that make sense? The developers' exact reasoning behind this change specifically to SLRs is to make these weapons that require multiple hits to kill more effective relative to bolt-action rifles, shotguns, and explosives. Anyway, moving on, the last big change is to shotguns. Now, holy mother of balls, this is a big change right here. They said they are tweaking shotguns to reduce the random nature of pellet dispersion. Translation, all shotguns now fire 12 pellets per shot, and the damage has been sort of changed accordingly so that roughly the damage between different shotguns is kind of the same as it was before. On top of that, they've actually changed the whole way the position of pellets in a single shot works, so it's not so random anymore, but it is complicated, and I'll get to that more in the details later on. So that's it for the summary. I mean, basically, everything has been super buffed, not even a tiny buff, majorly buffed across the board. Perhaps except the shotguns. I mean, we'll have to see how those are. So that's the summary. Anyway, now let's hammer out some specific damage values.
This is where shit gets real.
Okay, let's start with the LMGs, and specifically the Shusha. The French one. The max damages have been increased from 35 to 38, and the minimum from 23 to 28. Now that's a big damage buff for already the most powerful LMG. That is insane. They've also extended its 3-hit kill range. Next up is the BAR and the Bene Mercy, which have the same damage. They've increased the max from 23 to 26.5, and the minimum, which was one of the highest in the LMG class, from 19 to 23, so a big damage buff there. Next up, we have the Madsen, the MG15, and the MG14-17 Parabellum. The max there has been increased from 23 to 28. I can't believe some of these. This is some insane buffage right here. And the minimum is from 17.5 to 21. I can't believe the level of buffage, man. Anyway, next up is the Lewis, the Hewitt, and the Perino. The max has been increased from 23 to 26.5 again, and the minimum from 15 all the way up to 20, so those three are much better at range. Now, there's a special note here. The developers have said, because of this change to the Lewis, Hewitt, and Perino, they no longer drop off to a much lower bullet-to-kill value at long range compared to other LMGs, like they used to. So to counter that, the horizontal recoil of these three has been increased significantly, and I've got those values as well. The Lewis horizontal recoil has gone from 0.34 to 0.48. The Hewitt 0.16 to 0.28, and the Perino from 0.24 to 0.3. Now that horizontal recoil, that's a serious nerf. That's a big change in recoil. That being said, that's the only negative in this entire update. Everything else is a buff. Anyway, that's it for LMGs. Let's move on to SMGs, submachine guns. starting with the MP18 and the SMG 0818, which is the new Russian SMG. The max damage of these has been increased from 23 to 28. Now that is a huge buff for an SMG. Jesus Christ! And the minimum has gone from 13.5 to 15, so a nice big buff there for the new SMG and the MP18. Now the Hell Regal is next, and a lot of people would argue that the Hell Regal didn't need a buff, but here we are. The max has gone from 23 to 26.5, and the minimum damage has gone from 13.5 to 15, so a little bit of a buff there for the Hell Regal. Next up is the Automatico. Now the Automatico is a bit unique. They haven't increased the maximum damage, but they have increased the minimum from 12 to 13.5. And the reason they've done this, apparently, is so that the time to kill at very close range has been much closer matched to other SMGs, because the Automatico was like by far the fastest time to kill before. But they've evened that out now. But to counter that, they've actually reduced the vertical recoil from 0.4 to 0.36, so slightly less vertical recoil, but I'm not a fan of that. I love the Automatico for its faster killing at close range, but they've gone out of their way to reduce it and make it more similar to other SMGs. I think that's a step in the wrong direction, personally. Anyway, ignoring my opinion, next is the Ribirol. I still can't pronounce that, and I'm never going to be able to pronounce it. The Ribeye Roll. The maximum damage has gone from 23 to 28. That's a big buff along with the MP18 there, big buff. And the minimum damage is from 15 to 17.5, which is more than the MP18. So the Ribirol does huge damage now. It already did huge damage, but the damage is now even more. Anyway, next up, the developers have listed this weapon in the SMGs. I'm not entirely sure why, but the M1903 Experimental, the scout weapon, the minimum damage has been increased from 13.5 to 15, and they have extended the 4, 5, and 6 bullet kill ranges. So basically, at certain ranges, at certain distances, it takes fewer bullets to kill. So basically, an all-round buff there for that weapon. Anyway, moving on from SMGs and wannabe SMGs, SLRs, the medic rifles. Now, like I said, it was the damage buffs to the SMGs and LMGs that were the buffs for the SMGs and LMGs. But for the SLRs, it's the accuracy and range that's changed. So right off the bat, we have a big change to all SLRs across the board. We have reduced standing aim down sight minimum spread by 0.03 degrees, I think. Basically, there's less spread when you're standing and aiming down sight. And then, the spread increase per shot for all SLRs has been reduced from 0.2 to 0.1, so you can now fire consecutively at sort of half the spread increase per shot. That is a big accuracy buff for consecutive shots. And thirdly, and this is where we get into the hardcore details, they have increased the range. Basically the damage drop-off points for most SLRs. Let's start with the RSC 1917. Now, the RSC was a powerhouse. It's always been a 2-hit kill to 47 meters. Well, they've increased that to 70 meters. 70 meters. That is an incomprehensible buff there for the RSC. Next up is the Autoloading 8, the Infantry and the Marksman. They have increased the 3-hit kill range from 47 meters to 70 meters. Now, do you see what I mean when I said at the beginning that these weren't just like a little buff? This is a major, massive buff across the board. Anyway, next up is the other one, the Autoloading 8 Extended. Once again, they've increased the 3-hit kill range for this weapon from 17 meters up to 20 meters, a small buff, and they've also increased the 4-hit kill range from 27 meters to 30 meters. So basically, that gun does more damage now to a slightly longer distance, a slight buff. Next up is the M1907, one of my favourite weapons. They've increased the 3-hit kill range from 27 meters to 30 meters. Again, just a small 3-meter buff. But they've increased the 4-hit kill range as well from 36 to 45 meters. Now, that's not a small buff. That's a big buff. Some of these changes are honestly mental. I mean, but I'm loving it. More damage can only be a good thing. Next up is the Italian Stallion, the Che Rigotti. The 3-hit kill range for this weapon has gone up from 36 meters to 45, which matches the 4-hit kill range for the M1907. That is a serious buff. I mean, the Che Rigotti, quite specifically, is generally, by most people, largely sort of like cast away because there are more preferred medic weapons. But for a 3-hit kill for that weapon to 45 meters, that is now a serious contender. Anyway, next up we have a slew of weapons. The Selbstlater 1906 and the 1916 variants, the Mondragon, all kinds, and the General Liu. The damage drop-off start distance, where the damage is, the damage is from its maximum, and then at a certain range, the damage starts to drop off. Well, that start distance, where the damage starts to fall, has been increased by 50%. 50! And similarly, the damage drop-off end distance, where the damage finally reaches its minimum, has also increased by 50. 50% extra range start to end for those weapons. 50! Talk about a fucking buff! Anyway, enough for super medic buffage. Let's move on finally to the shotguns. Do you remember when I said that the new system for where pellets go in a single shot was complicated now? Well, I'm going to try and break it down. The dispersion of the new 12 pellets, because remember, all the new shotguns now fire 12 pellets. Before, they all fired different numbers of pellets, but now they all fire 12. So, the dispersion of the 12 pellets for every shotgun is split into 12 sectors. Each single pellet has its own sector. 6 of the 12 pellets are in an inner circle, and the other 6 are in the outer circle. So 6 inside, 6 outside. Now, the 6 in the outer circle, they're not just anywhere in the outer circle. That outer circle itself is split into 6 sectors. Long story short, the placement of each of the 12 pellets is now quite specific and strict. And the whole point of this change is to seriously reduce the random nature of pellet dispersion. Well, it's certainly a lot less random now. So let's get into the actual specific damage values. Now, all the damages I'm going to list are actually, it's the damage per pellet, but I've also done a bit of maths. You won't find these stats anywhere else. I've done some maths to work out the new maximum damage if you land every pellet on your target. Let's say you're point blank and you land every pellet. Well, in brackets, I've put the total max damage, just to be helpful. First of all, we have the 12G automatic. The maximum damage for each pellet has gone down from 8.4 to 7.7, giving you a total of 92.4 if you land every shot at point blank range. The minimum has gone down from 4.2 to 3.85. Next up is I still don't know how to pronounce this, the Sjögrin. Of course, they've reduced the pellets to 12, which is 1 less pellet. The maximum damage has gone up from 8.4 to 9.1, giving you a total, if you land every pellet, to 109.2, which is a one-shot kill. And similarly, the minimum has gone up from 4.2 to 4.55. Next up is the M97 Trench. Pellets have gone down, of course, which means that they've had to up the damage, the maximum from 8.4 to 10, giving you a maximum shot damage of 120 if you land every pellet, and the minimum from 4.2 to 5. Personally, I'm not sure how to feel about the every shotgun now fires 12 pellets, because the pellet count is often what made one of the biggest differences between the shotguns. Like the weapon that's next, the M97 Sweeper. The pellets has got, I loved the high pellet count of 22. Well, it's now 12, of course, like every other one, which doesn't make me happy. To compensate, though, I mean, the pellet count is practically halved, so the damage has gone through the roof. The maximum damage has gone up from 7.2 all the way to 12.5, giving a maximum of 125 if you can land every pellet. And the minimum similarly up from 2.4 to 4.2. So, I mean, maybe this whole system will balance it out so it feels no different to how it did before, but that remains to be seen. Next up, we have all models of the Model 10, the Remington 1900 and the sawed-off shotgun. The pellets of all these were 20. They've all gone down to 12 now, of course. The max damage has been increased from 8.4 to 12.56, which is even more than the M97 Sweeper, giving the highest damage, 125.6. And the minimum damage has gone up from 4.2 to 6.25. So that's a lot to take in. So as I summarised in the beginning, giant buff across the board for SMGs, LMGs, and even SLRs. But I mean, the buffing has been done in different ways. So more damage to the automatic weapons, but greater accuracy and range to the single-shot weapons. No changes to the sniper rifles, though. They're still the same. And I'm not sure how to feel about the shotgun changes. I mean, these could be excellent. I mean, I've yet to use this patch. I haven't been on the community test environment yet to try these out. And maybe it's a good change. So I'm not going to shit on these changes too much for the shotguns. Anyway, I'm sure this video is long enough, so I'm going to end it there. As I said, this is a huge change to the game overall, and I'm really looking forward to these changes in the main game. For a long time, I've honestly felt that like many weapons just feel too weak in Battlefield 1, at least compared to previous games. So, you know, now we have an answer to that. Buff, buff, buff. Like this video if you liked it, like this video if you didn't like it, and catch me in the next video. Liquid Blitz, out.